Hello everybody, and welcome to what we call the Balance video conversations, where during this series that we're calling Balance, we are having conversations with the people who have been preaching these messages across our sites. Today we've got Ben Oliver with us. Thanks for joining me, Ben, for today.
Very welcome.
Hello
everyone.
Great for you're here. So if you haven't accessed any of the preachers yet, the Balance series is where we're taking every week two different concepts. These might be theological practices or ways in which we outwork our faith as followers of Jesus. And we're, spoiler alert, the answer is basically each week that we need both, isn't it, of all these concepts that we're looking at. And today we're looking at the concepts of being hungry and healthy. So Ben, actually, unlike lots of the other ones, which I think are reasonably self-explanatory when you see the words, what do we mean by being hungry? What do we mean by being healthy?
It's a metaphor. We're not talking about diets.
This is the food week.
Yeah, this is not the food week. It's a metaphor. So hungry is talking about our passion, our desire to do stuff for God or do stuff for Jesus. We want to, in some way, fulfill his great commission. Go into all the world and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them to obey everything I command. And we're like, yes, I want to do some for God. So to the extent that we want to do that, we're hungry.
Yeah,
that's what we mean by that.
Yeah.
Of course, in the talk, we're talking about the sons of thunder, James and John, who are really hungry. They want to destroy a Samaritan village for resisting Jesus. So our hunger can get a bit into overdrive sometimes.
Yeah.
Or we can have a lack of appetite too. So it's not okay just to be hungry to do stuff. It also needs to be healthy. And when we look at Jesus, we see that his union with God, his immersion in the love of God was making his actions not just doing anything, but they were doing God's will. He was doing what God wanted. And so his not just hungry, he's also healthy. And that has to do more with the great commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So hungry, great commission, let's get on board. Healthy, great commandment, let's stay in love as God is.
Yeah, great. And so you've been preaching this in various places. Have you got anywhere else to preach it yet?
No.
So, so you've preached it in Bracknell, in Farnborough,
and online.
And online as well. So if you haven't seen the preach yet, then you'll be able to watch it here online, our Kerith YouTube channel, and also on the Bracknell and Farnborough podcasts as well.
That's right.
So do go and check out that preach. Maybe pause this video, go and watch the preach first, and then come back to this conversation. So these terms, hungry and healthy, you haven't just plucked them out of the air.
No.
They're
nicked.
Yeah, we've stolen them.
Yeah.
They're stolen. So do you want to share a little bit of the story of where these are from and how we use them?
So part of my role, I'm executive pastor. So I'm responsible for what we call our office team. So those who are employed, including yourself, Ben. And Simon was very clear that when God called him to lead the church, that his focus needed to be on our culture. We're talking about that every week in this series. But when it came to the office team, we are working together like for hours and hours every week to say huge concepts like grace and truth. We wanted it to be fleshed out a bit more nitty gritty. And so we did an exercise as a group together. What kind of a place do we want to work in? What do we want to hold ourselves accountable to in the way that we behave? How should we behave with each other? And so we came up with a list, which we kind of condensed down to about 30. 30 different things. There's a lot. And they're really helpful because they're specific. Like, I understand exactly what you mean by that. I know how you would like me to behave, and I know how I can expect others to behave. Great. We've got 30. They're tangible. They're understandable. Not so good. No one's going to remember all 30. So I was searching for, like, are there some values, like umbrella values that people would actually have a chance of remembering? So we bunched those 30 into 3 groups of 10. And those have the names hungry, humble, which we didn't cover in the preach, and healthy. Hungry and humble come from Patrick Lencioni, fantastic thought leader in the any organisation. He just maxes out on how do you get an organisation to be really healthy and clear in what it's going for and how they're working together. And then another huge contributor to us would be Pete and Jerry Scazzero and emotionally healthy spirituality and all of that. And so the word healthy came from them. Their real emphasis on, and you'll hear it in the talk as well, that our doing for Jesus must flow out of our being with Jesus. So doing for Jesus would be hungry. I've appropriated it in that way. But being with Jesus would be healthy. And that's their terminology. So thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Pete and Jerry.
Yeah, good.
And then we now use those as shorthand to have a memorable 3 values in the office team.
One of the things that when I sat down with Simon to chat about Simon, we were talking a little bit about culture and the importance of culture, and within that we were saying actually this isn't just a culture thing for us as a church, but culture is really important in our families and in our businesses as well.
Yes.
You mentioned Patrick Lencioni then. So actually this idea that these are cultural values for us as an organisation in terms of, office team, staff members kind of thing. So what are the books that you would recommend from Patrick Lencioni? Just I know we've got Jerry and Pete Scazzero's ones as well.
Definitely. Gosh. So if you are running an organisation in any way or involving in setting culture, the big summary book that brings a whole load of that together would be The Advantage.
Yes.
If you're in a family setting and you'd like to define the culture for your family, which is super helpful if you've got kids and they're asking you, why can't I go to that party? Why can't I do that? Why do I have to go on this walk? Why are you making me do my homework? Get a lot of those questions, right? It's so helpful to go, hey, we're the Oliver family, and in the Oliver family, this is how we do. This is the culture that we've set. This is what we believe God is calling us to. So he has a book called 3 Big Questions for a Frantic Family.
Oh, amazing. Right.
And one of those questions is, what's our culture like? How do we behave in this family? So that's super helpful. Then he's done one for the workplace as well. If you're involved in recruiting team or folks like that, that's called The Ideal Team Player. And in there, his 3 values for an ideal team player are, let me get it, because we've changed them, but it's hungry, humble, and smart.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So by smart, he really means what we mean by healthy. So that's when I say we've borrowed, we've stolen, we totally have. We've just appropriated and changed the name slightly.
And Patrick, he's a Christian, isn't he? So actually, he when I've seen him speak in these books, they're applicable to non-Christian organisations. But but wanting to bring those kingdom values to wherever we go.
They're being introduced to kingdom values, and they resonate with people because they say, yes, I do want to work in a culture like that. But it's elevating and it works as well. So it's good for business, it's good for your team cohesion, it's good for the results that you'll deliver. So he's done very well.
So we've got these 3. We've got hungry, healthy, and humble. So we're parking humble for today.
We don't need to be humble.
I think we're probably really good at being.
I think we are the most humble church in the world.
Well, so maybe we do need to come back to that another day. But so we'll look at healthy and hungry then. What does that look like in real? They're the concepts, but there's behaviour. There's the 10 for each of them.
There's some great
share
examples.
a few of those.
So hungry, we've talked about, we would say on our office team, well, we're passionate about what we do because we're passionate about Jesus. So that would be one of the behaviours. So the passion to do stuff is coming from our passion for Jesus. We have a great little one with thermostats, not thermometers. So what do you mean by that? Well, if you were a thermometer, you'd be saying this room is too hot or too cold, but you wouldn't be able to do anything about
it.
Whereas a thermostat, you can say this room is too hot and too cold, and I'm going to change it so that it can get to the temperature that we like. Well, culture, that's the same. So we don't just want people in the office team to say, well, I didn't like that meeting, or I don't like the way you're going with this. We're not just saying and reporting back on what's wrong. We're taking responsibility for saying, and I prefer it this way, or have you thought about doing it this way? make a difference, to take responsibility for that meeting.
Yeah, that's good.
And similarly, take responsibility for the fruitfulness of those you lead. Like, I'm not just an island, I'm responsible for your fruitfulness. And so in the way that in the past when I've been your line manager, I'm thinking, how can I get Ben to be super fruitful? What does he need? How do I set that up for him? What training does he need? What decision do you need? Do you need time with Simon? I can help with that. What budgets do you need? We're asking those kind of questions because I'm taking seriously that responsibility for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. And then what about healthy side of things? What would be some examples?
My favourite one on the healthy is that we say we recognise that grumpy is a choice, not an emotion.
Yes.
And the reason that's in there is because when we were first learning about emotionally healthy spirituality, we were learning that about how emotions come and go and how to try and pay attention to them. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. Grumpy can last a long time. I can be grumpy for a long time. Yes. And the person taking us through it just immediately said, grumpy's a choice, not an emotion. And I was like, convicted. Very good. And again, I suppose it's a bit like we take responsibility for our own emotional state. Yeah. So we notice our emotions. I can't make myself feel certain things or other things. But there are other things. There are behaviours like being grumpy. I am responsible for that. Yeah. So that was probably my favourite one. There'd be others we'd be very familiar with in Kerith. Like, we set healthy rhythms of work, rest and delight. So we're not just work all the time. Where's Sabbath? Yeah. Where's time with family? Where's silence and solitude? Where's looking after yourself and your relationship with God? How do you do holidays? Is that a holiday from God? As well as it's being a holiday from work? And it's like, no. And no, we don't take work on holiday, but we don't go on holiday from God. We go on holiday to God in order to be with him. And especially when you work in a church, you have to be quite careful with that. So we felt like that would be an important one to name. Yeah, that's great. That's really good. It's I think part of your message as well that you shared was these kind of real tangible kind of almost notifiers as to how you're doing, isn't it? In terms of when you might be overdoing for God or when you might be underdoing for God. And so these kind of almost similar, like, these are helpful, practical ways in which we can try to express what it is to be hungry and what it is to be healthy, really, isn't it? So you've been preaching this a few times now, as we said, and you've been sat with this message, not just preparing the message, but I suppose for years, as these have been part of the culture. I presume you've had various conversations with people off the back of the preaching and things. What do you think has stood out for you as you've carried this message over the last however long it's been now? For me, it's so emotionally healthy spirituality gave us all those things that we're saying about the symptoms of overdoing. Yeah. It's a bit of a tendency of a Western culture to overdo, and even more so, I think Pete would say, in America, where he is based. It's an Americanized culture. Go, go, go. Force your will on other people. Manage everything. We're probably not quite as extreme as that. And as I was preparing the message, I was thinking, well, I know a lot of people, and I see also in myself, sometimes I underdo. And that's just as unhealthy. So it's not just about the overdoing. So for the preach, we added in like some symptoms of underdoing. And I had quite a few people come up to me at the end and say, I see both in myself. Yeah. So I'm unhealthy in, I don't want to do God's will for my life. I don't want to fulfill his purposes because it's hard work. It might break my heart. I'm not sure if I'm good enough. There must be people more qualified than me. I would resonate with all of those. As well as the overdoing, like, I definitely know what God's will is for my life and your life, and I'm going to make it happen in your life as well. I'm going to work myself into the bone to make it happen and ignore the limits that God has placed around me as a human being. Or I'm going to tread on the relationships closest to me because the mission's so important that's outweighs them. So there's both sides of being unhealthy that I felt that really stood out to me, and a number of people saying they could see themselves on both. Yeah. So someone came up with a new suggestion as to why they wouldn't they might underdo. They said, I just feel overwhelmed. Just a symptom of being overwhelmed by all the stuff can cause us to freeze as much as it can cause us to go into overdrive. It just depends on our own flavour of brokenness, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's really true.
And what our tendencies are. So I think, I know that's really resonated with people. And again, clearly leaning on wonderful material and emotionally healthy spirituality stuff, but we've learned our own stuff around there as well.
I think what you're saying is so true. I think even with people's multifaceted lives, it may be that we are, really leaning in and maybe overdoing it when it comes to our work and career or something like that. But then when it comes to maybe our family culture or, caring for the relationships within our family, we might be sort of stepping back and letting it just happen, and I know certainly in my life I'd say that's been the case at times when I've lent into certain areas of my life and overdone it, thinking it all depends on me, and then other areas of my life I haven't been proactive enough to bring kingdom values and outwork what it is to follow Jesus in that setting effectively. It's that I'm sure that rings a lot of bells for people, that kind of having both and
one of the joys of being married is that you've probably got one in a partnership who would lean more to overdoing and one that might lean towards underdoing. So you're probably getting feedback in the area. Certainly I am. So I would be more underdoing. Becky, my wife, would probably be more overdoing. And so that feedback is going on. And in that case, you want a balance, but it's probably more of a tension. It's going to get you there.
That's good.
But we need other people. It doesn't matter whether you're married or not. You'll have friends in or family, other family members or work colleagues, and you'll see this tension going on. And, or even maybe you're co-leading a group or something, and someone's always wanting to do, and the other person's always saying, no, we just need to chill out and relax and so on. And the message is that you need both, but actually, in order to get both, in order to be healthy in the way that you work, to steal that phrase again from emotionally healthy, our doing for Jesus must, and I would say, and will flow from our being with him.
That's a really important part, isn't it?
So if I find being with him, I might get a prompting to do an action. So I'm prone to inaction, but I'll get a prompting from spending time with the Holy Spirit. He'll be like, why don't you text so-and-so? Or why don't you do so-and-so? I had one the other week where one of my daughters has, of her own bat, decided with some friends that we need to do a Bible study. So they got themselves together to do it. They found a leader who would do it. And it turns out that for the first one of those, that leader couldn't make it over to a convenient central location, but could only host it at their place, which was a good 20, 30-minute drive away. So you get my underdoing reaction, which is like, I don't want to have to take on a Tuesday night, take her over. Anyway, Monday comes around where I'm in my regular habit of spending time with Jesus, praying specifically. And she's on that, on my prayer list, my daughter, and I realize on there is engaging with the Bible. I help her to do that, and I'm praying it. And I literally heard in my spirit, Ben, you need to do whatever it takes to get her to that group. I don't often hear something as strong as that. And that was the kick in the pants, if you like, that I needed to go. So, and I told her that. She was absolutely chuffed, that I'm praying for her, that God's speaking on her behalf, and that then I'm actually going to, get up and get in the car and give her the lift that she needs.
Amazing.
So that would be an example of how being with Jesus makes my actions, my doing for him healthy, where I would have probably underdone in the past.
That's really good. That's excellent stuff. So, so to lead into the passage a bit that you spoke on. So, the scene is Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem, stops at Samaria, where he's not welcomed, and then we then see the reaction of the disciples, and we then see Jesus' reaction. Maybe you could give us a bit of a summary as to what happens, but also then, I guess, what did you love about that passage? So is there anything else that you sort of would love to share about that?
I just love that the disciples get it wrong.
Yeah,
Just love it because it's so encouraging.
Yeah.
Because I get it wrong. We all get it wrong. And just to know that we're not on our own, and that isn't the end of the road for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can always then come to Jesus, confess it, repent it.
Yeah.
He rebukes James and John in this passage because they want to call fire down from heaven to destroy a Samaritan village. And you can listen to the talk to know, well, what's the context of that? Why would that even have entered their heads? But later on, like not in this passage, but later on in the gospel accounts, we learn that when Jesus is crucified and the other disciples have deserted him, John's still with him. And Jesus turns to John and says, "This is your mother." And he puts his own mum, Mary, in the care of John. And as far as church tradition knows it, he did that for the rest of her life, which was decades.
Amazing.
So he was the one who wanted to call fire down from heaven to destroy an entire village, but then goes on to be the one Jesus says, "Will you look after my mum?"
Yeah, amazing.
And it's like, okay, there's hope for us all.
Yeah.
Then there is hope for us all. And what was the difference? Well, it was the time with Jesus. Being with Jesus enabled the love of God to change John.
Yeah.
There's another lovely little snippet that we hear. John goes with another guy, Peter, back to Samaria. After the Holy Spirit's been poured out, Jesus has been raised from the dead, gone back to heaven, poured out the Holy Spirit. People in Samaria accept Jesus as Lord, and they were enemies. Samaritans and Jews, they would be like, "No, you've got it wrong in the way that you are trying to worship Jehovah." So they were suspicious of one another. But suddenly Peter and John get tasked with going to a Samaritan village to go and pray for these new brothers and sisters who have accepted Jesus. And so again, what a transformation. So again, one Samaritan village, he wants to call down fire to destroy them. Well, actually, in this second one, he goes to pray for them that they might receive, metaphorically, the fire of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So he is getting to call fire down from heaven on Samaritans, which is what he wanted to do all along. But the expression of it has been totally changed.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
By being with Jesus and the health that being with Jesus and in person and then by his Spirit has totally transformed him. So what a lovely, I don't know, it's not balance, is it? It's just like a transformation journey for John, that when his actions come from, his hunger comes from being healthy, it's amazing. When his hunger comes from just himself, it's unhealthy.
Sometimes we can struggle to see, will this get any better? Will my life change any? Will I get better at this, or am I just stuck in this habitual way of thinking or operating? Whether it be a frenzied pace, trying to do absolutely everything, or whether it be this kind of paralysis of not doing anything because for whatever reason, to have that hope that actually, because of the power of Jesus, we can see change in our lives to see things differently.
And the scary thing is, that's the journey he's got us on, a continual transformation journey. And transformed into what? Well, more and more love. More and more love. Like more and more like Jesus, who is God, who is love. So we can be trusted more and more if we allow the work of the Spirit in us directly, through his word, through other people, through all these ways that he's working in us. If we all cooperate with him and allow that transformation to go on into greater and greater love, we can be trusted more and more that what we will to do, that what we want to do is what the Father wants us to do. Just like Jesus only did what he saw his Father doing, only wanted to do what his Father had for him to do. And we'll increasingly become like that. And it will flow. It will be less and less of a strain and a deliberate, conscious choice. It'll become more and more natural, more and more we will want to do what he wants us to do. We'll never get there fully in this world as it is now until Jesus comes back. But he doesn't leave us as we are. He is changing and transforming us, making us more and more healthy. That our appetite, our hunger is more and more healthy and more trusted to do as well.
Yeah. I was just talking then, I'm sort of picturing almost this idea of some of the disciples being like, do you remember when you said to Jesus to call down from heaven, and now look what's happened here, and look at you now, kind of thing. And you wonder whether that's where, like, that community side of things, where sometimes we just need other people to point to us to say, do you see how you've changed, and do you see how you've grown? And I just wonder, that support of one another is what we need, isn't it, to help us see some of the growth that we've probably already been on, but sometimes we haven't seen that growth, have we? We haven't seen that change happening in us. You just live in your daily life, aren't you? So I just picture the disciples sharing those memories, or those moments of, do you remember when you did that? But now look at you now. And I guess our prayer is that people will notice those differences in their own lives, as well as each other's, I suppose, and support one another.
You're making me think. It's quite funny. The Gospels were written not in the same year. They were written over a few decades, actually. And I think John's was the last one to be written. So he gets the last word to how he describes himself.
Yes.
So Luke's described him and James as the sons of thunder. That's the nickname that he was given, which is more akin to how he started out. When John writes his Gospel, he, funnily enough, doesn't use that phrase. He says, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And so he gets the last word. But I don't think he's bragging and flexing. He's going, no, I want to emphasize not who I was, but how I've been changed. And it's the fact that I've experienced the love of Jesus. That's how I've been changed. So that's exciting.
It often gets joked about, doesn't it? Like big-headed John saying, I'm the one who loves. But actually, that's an incredible amount of self-awareness there to be able to say, I'm loved by him.
I don't think it is
to say it.
I don't think it's a brag or a flex. I think it's like it's an extent to which he's been impacted by the love of Jesus.
So it's amazing, really. It's something for us to learn on, really, isn't it? Anyway, so hungry and healthy. So as we begin to wrap things up, these are values that we want and are seeking to live out as a church, as well as really encouraging every individual in our church to be living these out as well. Anything last things you'd want to say in terms of encouragement to people on this journey of it?
Just prioritize time that you have to be healthy, which means time being with Jesus, which means some very old-fashioned things potentially that you probably already do and know about or have tried but can so easily slip. It means things like spending time in prayer. It means things like spending time in the Word. It means don't give up coming to church and gathering together, watching online if you can't get there in person. It means being part of a small group of people. Taking Sabbath, a 24-hour period in your week when you stop work, and you can rest and you can delight and contemplate God. Tons of stuff. You already know all these things. But just trust that in doing these, we're not doing these things to impress God. We're not doing these things to earn favor with him. We're not doing these things in any way to compete with our brothers and sisters. We're doing them because we believe that through them we're changed. We spend time with Jesus in these ways and he changes us, he transforms us, he goes to work on us and we become more and more loving. And my will is more and more like his. That's why we do them. And they're actually enjoyable as well. I actually miss not having those times when a week gets crowded out with busyness. As well as then getting the feedback from others around that I'm not being very loving in the way that I'm dealing with them. So that's my plea. Please prioritize how you are being with Jesus.
That's great.
And there's so many tools and ways to help with that. Talk to anyone. We've all got really good ways that wire and help us the way we're wired in our personalities. Keep doing what you already know and then talk to other people about top tips for new habits or ways of doing them.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time today. And thank you for joining us today for this conversation. Just a reminder, if you haven't heard the sort of hungry, healthy message from this Balance series, you can do that via the Bracknell and the Farnborough podcasts. Also, you can watch it here on our YouTube channel as well if you want to catch up on that message. And just a reminder that we've done a whole host of these conversations over this Balance series. So there's all sorts of ones on grace and truth and charismatic and contemplative and word and spirit as well be coming. So there's a whole collection of these conversations. So do, again, check out our YouTube channel for those. And if you want all of this in one place, head to kerith.church/balance, where you can access all the different resources from this series. But anyway, thanks a lot, Ben. Appreciate
Very
your time.
welcome. It's been brilliant to be with you.
Yeah, it's been fun. And we'll speak soon. See you.